and welcome to Back to Basics. So today I'm going to talk to you about hemming. Various different ways of how to hem things and the pros and cons of them. So let's get stuck in and I'm going to talk you through some of the methods available. Okay, so the methods available that I'm going to talk you through today are 3 hand sewing methods. We're going to do a slip stitch, we're going to do a hem stitch, and we're going to do a catch stitch using a needle and thread. So they're the first options. Then we're going to move on to using the machine, and we're going to do a bog standard straight stitch to hem your item. And we're also going to work on a blind hem, and I'm going to show you how to do those. The final method to hem an item would be good old Wonderweb, which everybody should have in their mending box. Interestingly enough, I've just gone to get some so that I could do a little test for you and show you how to use it, and I don't have any. So I can't show you how to use Wonderweb, but I'm hoping that you will all know how to use that. And it is great for a quick fix. However, I wouldn't use it as a permanent solution. I would use one of the solutions that I'm about to show you now. So I just thought I would quickly stick that in there. So yes, Wonderweb is an option. I just don't have any at the minute to be able to show you how to use it. So keep watching and let me know what you think. Right, we're going to pretend that this is our item that needs to be re-hemmed. And I am going to measure up 3 inches from the bottom edge. So if you have already got a hem in there, you will unpick that first and press it. And then we're going to measure 3 inches from the bottom edge. Like so. And then I'm just going to draw a line so you can see. Right, so that's my bottom edge. And then we're going to press that crease in place. And that becomes the finished edge of the garment. And the difference between pressing and ironing, so pressing is leaving the iron on top of the fabric and letting the heat and the weight of the iron set the crease. Ironing is when you wiggle it like this to try and get the creases out. So we're going to press that in place, and we've now got our new finish line. The next thing we need to do is hide the raw edges. So we're going to open it up again, and then we're going to fold our bottom edge into the crease, and then we're going to press that again. And then we're going to fold that over, and we're going to press that again. So we now have our fabric pressed and ready to sew. Okay, so the fabric has been pressed for our finished edge, and then we are hiding the raw edges by folding the bottom edge into the finished crease and then folding it over again. So if you don't have 3 inches available, that's totally fine. Just do your finished length first, and then whatever the raw edge is at the bottom, fold that up to your new finished edge crease, and this amount here will be less, which is fine. And then you fold it over again and you're ready to sew. This method will work for hand sewing, and if you just want to do a straight stitch on your sewing machine. So this is the method that you would use to do any of those options. Okay, so we are going to do our first hem. Now, when you're doing this, you will use a thread that matches as close as you can to the colour of your fabric. I'm going to use the blue so that you can see what I'm doing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to thread the needle, and we're using a single thread and I'm going to use a needle threader to do it. So thread the needle. If you don't have a needle threader, get one because it speeds things up dramatically. She says as she unthreads it 3 or 4 times. Right, okay, we've got it this time. Right, so needle is threaded. We're going to tie a knot in the bottom. To do that, take the end of the thread and hold the eye of the needle together. Wind it round. The more times you wind it round the needle, the bigger the knot. So I'm going to do 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then you're literally just going to use your fingers and slide that down the length of the thread. And then it creates a knot in the bottom. So that's you threaded the needle and created a knot. And I'm just going to snip a bit of the end off. So the first type of stitching we're going to do is the slip stitch. Now I'm left-handed, so I'm going to work this way. If you're right-handed, you might prefer to work the opposite way. I'm not quite sure because I'm left-handed. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put the needle through the fold in the fabric of the hem, and that's where the knot will then sit. So you're going to go in here basically. You don't need to fold it, unfold it to thread to do your first stitch. It's just so that you can see where you actually start from. So you're going to basically do your first stitch in that top crease, and then the slip stitch is where you take a tiny little bit from the main fabric or the outside fabric in line with the opposite side. So where I've come out on the hem, I'm taking a tiny little stitch, literally 1 thread of fabric, and then I'm going to go into the fold of the hem and slide my needle along about 1/2 centimetre, and then bring the needle out, still just in the hem. And then you're going to take a tiny little nibble from the main fabric, literally 1 thread. And as I said before, the closer your thread is to the colour of your fabric, the more invisible this is going to be. So that's me done 2. And then I'm going to go in another 1/2 centimetre in my fold. And the more accurate you can, or the more even you can do your little nibbles, the neater it will look. And you're literally just going to do that all the way along. Now what I would say to you is, if your garment is, say, a skirt, which is quite a long hem to do in one sitting, I would go from side seam to side seam if they've got them, rather than having a really long thread, because if you've got a really long thread, it can easily get twisted and knotted, and that is really frustrating. So I would go for, instead of trying to do it in one go, I would try to do it in 2. Trouser legs should be fine. You should be able to do each of those and with 1 thread. But if it's a skirt, depending on how small the skirt is, so if it's like a little reception or year 1, you might get away with it, but otherwise I would do it in 2 sittings. So that is a couple of stitches done. And then if I turn that round to the other side, you can barely see the blue, and you can see how obvious that is. And this is where my little stitches are. So that's method number 1, and I'm now going to show you the next method. Okay, right, so we're now going to do a hemming stitch. So needle is threaded, it's going to tie a knot in the end. I'm going to hope that this bit of thread is long enough. You would use a thread and a fabric that are as close to each other in colour as you can, so you're not going to see any of it. We're going to tie a knot in the bottom, so the end of the thread goes next to the eye of the needle, and then you're going to twist the thread round the point of the needle, and the more times you twist it round, the bigger the knot. So I'm going 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and then you slide that down the length of the needle, and that creates a knot in the bottom. And then we are going to do the stitch through the fold in the hem. And again, as per the previous example, you don't need to unfold it to do this. I'm just unfolding it so you can see where I have put it. So it's in that fold there, like so. And then we are going to, oh, it's too small a knot. So let's make the knot a bit bigger. Right, so we've gone 6 times round now. It's a bigger knot. Okay. And again, as per the previous example, you can put it in there, or you can put it in the side seam if you start near a side seam. Right, so we're going to fold that over like this, and this time we're doing hemming stitch. So the hem stitch is you're going to go through the main fabric and the hem at the same time, and you do this quite close together. So you pick a little nibble from the main fabric, and then you go into the hem, and you do that as one motion, and then you repeat that process, and you're literally doing a couple of millimeters apart, really, and that will give you a really secure hem. So we're just going to do that all the way along. And it will do the same job as the other one. The difference being that there's more little nibbles on the outside of the fabric. I don't know what the technical term is. Nibble seems to be the word that makes sense to me. Hopefully it translates. So yeah, so it's just a little bit of each at the same time, and if you turn it over, you can see that they're more visible. But if you've done a closer colour combination than I have, obviously, then it'll blend in. But if I just keep going, and then I will show you the whole thing finished, and then I will show you how to tie it off at the end. So come back in a minute. Okay, so I've got to the end of the hemming stitch, and I'm now going to do the tying off of the ends. And to do that, I'm just going to go into the fold of the hem. I'm going to go in the same stitch twice, and then before I pull it tight, I'm going to go into the loop twice. So that's once, twice, and then if you pull that tight, that effectively makes a knot in the thread, and then you just slide it, the needle back through the hem. Now granted, in a garment you're not going to be able to do this because it's going to be a continuous loop, but you're just going to stick the needle close to that last stitch, and then try and feed the needle through the layers so it's in the middle, and then you just pull the needle out and then cut the thread, and that is the hemming stitch. So again, if you have done that in a similar colour, it will be less obvious where the stitches are, and that's it from the front. So you can see there, some stitches are bigger than others, and that's where I've taken a bigger chunk out of this side of the fabric. So that's hemming stitch, and now I'm going to go and press it, and then we'll move on to the next stitch. Okay, this is our final hand sewing method for hemming, and this is called catch stitch. So I've already attached my thread, and basically what you're going to do is you are going to do a little nibble on the hem fold, and you're going to do the stitch away from you, and then you're then going to come down onto the main fabric about 1/2 centimetre and take one thread. Again, the stitch is going away from you, and then we've got our first stitch. Then you're going to go 1/2 centimetre down on the actual edge of the hem on the fold, and then do another little nibble on that side. And then again, 1/2 centimetre onto the edge of the main fabric, and then back again 1/4 centimetre onto the fold of the hem, and you literally just do that all the way along. And what happens is you're only catching the main fabric every centimetre, instead of when we did the stay stitch hem, it was every 1/2 centimetre. This way it's every centimetre, so it's slightly further apart. And again, the closer your fabric is to your thread, the more invisible it will be. So you just do that all the way to the end. And it makes like a crisscrossy shape. Rethread my needle, and then we're just going to tie the end off. So I will go and finish doing that, and then I'll show you again exactly the same method, but I'll show you anyway how to tie off the end when you get to the end. Right, we're at the end, and we are just going to finish off by tying the end. And to do that, you're just going to go into the fold of the hem crease, and then you're going to go 2 loops, 2 times into the loop, pull it tight, and that creates a knot. And then you're just going to slide that thread into the channel that is the folded hem, and then pull the needle out the other side, like so, and then snip. And then we'll just press that, and that is our catch stitch hem done. And if I turn it over that way, you can see that the bright blue thread is virtually invisible. There's a couple there which are slightly bigger than the other, so I've just taken a bigger nibble here than I have here, for example. But again, if the thread's the same colour, you will barely notice that. So let's go get those ironed, and then we will move on. Okay, so we are now going to do our visible hem on the sewing machine. And the most important thing for this is to make sure that you actually catch the fold of the hem all the way around. And that's actually easier to do if you've got that on the top. So as long as your top and bottom thread are the same colour, then that will be fine. Again, I'm using the bright blue just to keep it consistent, and I am going to just stitch probably about 2 or 3 millimeters from the edge of the fold, and I've gone for a sort of 2.2 millimeter stitch length. And you need to remember to reverse at the beginning and the end, otherwise it will unravel. So you need to make sure that you just do a couple of stitches at the beginning and the end. And when you've got the fold on the top, it's easier then for you to make sure that it's a straight line. That will become more apparent on the outside, how accurately you folded it when you turn it over to the other side. But you want to make sure that you catch the whole thing, otherwise when, especially on a pair of trousers, if you put them on and off all the time, you could catch where it's not actually being stitched and then rip the actual hem. And I think I'm going to run out of bobbin thread. Now in this example it is going to be very obvious that this is the wrong colour. So yeah, you can see there that that is really obvious compared to the other ones that we did by hand. So that's how you do a visible hem on your sewing machine. Advantages of that are it's an awful lot quicker than the other methods. If you used a similar coloured thread, it wouldn't be as noticeable as that. Right, I want to talk to you about blind hem feet because they come in a couple of different formats. So this one has an adjustable guide, and what you do with this one is, this is your fabric that you're going to blind hem. This is the outside of the fabric and this is the final edge, and we're going to flip it over. This is now the wrong side of the fabric and the top of the folded edge of the hem. And then with this particular foot, the plastic bit here butts up against the fold in the fabric, and you can adjust that depending on how much room you have left here. And then depending on your machine, you might be able to move the needle from left to right, so you've got a lot of room there for tweaking it, so you literally can just take a tiny little nibble, and that's just about adjusting the two different settings to get the optimum result. So that's how that one works. This one has got a fixed lip. This bit here butts against the fabric fold, and there's a tiny little curve in the metal lip, and the needle comes down slightly to the left of that, and that should be on this fold of fabric, just and no more. And that's how that one works. And again, you might be able to move the needle from left to right, so you might have a little bit of room for accuracy adjustments on that. But that's the two different feet. So you've got one which has got a fixed bar that butts up against the fold in the fabric, and you've got the other one which is more adjustable. Right, so we're going to use the blind hem stitch now on our machine. So I will show you a picture of that on the screen of what it looks like on your machine. But it's kind of like a zigzag with a flat edge. And then you've got my blind foot on, and then what you do is you butt the fold, so you've got the wrong side of the fabric up. Let's just repeat that process. So this is it folded, and this is our new hem. So I've folded it over, and this is the wrong side. So we're going to flip it over so you can see the right side of the fabric, and then you're going to fold the hem over so that a little bit of it kicks out, like half a centimetre, and then turn it back over again. So you've now got the wrong side of the fabric face up and a little bit of the hem face up, the fold of the hem. And I'm using my blue thread again. And then the fold of the fabric, you're going to butt against the bar on the foot. And then you're going to put the foot down, and it should hit right next to it. And this is where the adjusting happens. So you want the needle to come down just in the fold of the fabric and no more. So I'm going to go a tiny little bit over, I can feel it hitting the fabric, but it might be one too many. So you might need to do a little bit of practicing on this. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches and then we're going to have a look and see what it looks like. So I would say that's too much. So if I just stop there, and then if I fold this over, you can see there's a little blue dot where the fabric, where the needle has gone through the fold in the fabric. So we want that to be a bit smaller. So I'm not going to unpick that. I'm just going to leave that as it was, and I'm going to adjust the needle back again. So let's just reset. So I'm going to reset it back to 1. And then in my case it's 9, and then I'm going to leave it at default this time and see what happens. Right, okay, so let's just see what that looks like. And again, it's just trial and error till you get it the way you want it. So this time, there's a smaller dot. You can see here that they're quite far apart. They're about 1 centimetre apart. And that's what it looks like in the inside. So you've got to just trial and error it because it needs to catch this fabric. Otherwise, the hem won't stay up. But equally, you don't want it to catch too much. And that's barely caught that at all. So it's just trial and error. And again, if that was in the matching thread, you would barely see that. So I will do it again with matching thread, and then we can compare the two. So watch this space. Okay, so let's recap on our blind hems. This blind hem is slip stitch, hand sewn slip stitch. And as you can see, you can barely see the stitches. The next one we did was the hem stitch. Again, that was hand stitched as well. The stitches in this one are a lot closer together, and they are also more obvious from the outside. So that's your hem stitch. Then we had the catch stitch, again hand stitched, and it was like it went opposite each other, kind of on a diagonal, like a crisscross effect, and you were stitching away from yourself, whereas with these two you were stitching towards yourself or sideways. And again, this one you can barely see the stitches, and they are further apart than they were with the slip stitch. Then we moved on to the machine. So this was just a bog standard top stitch, which we did in the blue, the same as the other 3. And I've also stitched this in the colour that is very close to the actual fabric colour, just so you can see how close a match that would be if you decided to go with that option. And then the final option was the blind hem on the sewing machine. So these were my 2 attempts using the blue. So this one was a wider blind hem. So the needle moved more to the left in this particular test, and here it was as close to the centre as you could get without hitting the bar, and the machine wouldn't let you do that or the needle would break. So that's as close as I could get on the machine settings, and this was slightly further apart. Now when the blue it's much more obvious that, and you can see them. However, when I redid it with the matching thread, you can barely see it. So this time I've done it in a matching thread, and it was on this setting here, and you can't see the actual stitches. So and then if I turn it over, this is what it looks like on the other side. So it gives you like a kind of flat zigzag, a zigzag with a flat bit and then another zigzag. So that's what it looks like, and that's what it will look like on your machine when you're choosing the stitches as well. Okay, so that is our session on hemming. I would love to know what you think, and give me a little comment below on which method was your preferred method. And please try them all out and let me know how you get on. Thanks for watching. Bye.